y'all ready to go?
Sure.
Let's do it. Bergstrom?
Yes.
Merritt? Taylor?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Vansickle?
Yes.
All right, how's the agenda look, guys?
I will move to approve.
Great.
I'll second.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Vansickle?
Yes.
Bergstrom?
Yes.
Merritt? Yes. All right, celebrations. We've got and reports. We've got a SIAC committee report.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. So if you guys recall, the SIAC stands for School Improvement Advisory Committee, and you are required on an annual basis to have some of your patrons come together and review a lot of data sets, as well as get their input on what they view as going on well within the school district, as well as opportunities for improving their growth. On June 12th, we had our annual SIAC committee, and we had 7 folks come, and myself and our principal shared a lot of the data for the 24-25 school year. We reviewed professional development. We also discussed goals that we had and what successes we had and or possibly what some of our shortcomings. We simply shared the information and we allowed two-way conversation, really wanted them to give us some feedback on what they think is going well from a parent's perspective or a community member's perspective. And we just simply jotted down a lot of notes. From those notes, then we as an administrative team are going to kind of review and analyze. I wanted to share with you guys, ultimately I thought there was 7 themes that came out of their questions. So you guys can see that in the document that I handed out to you guys, going from student learning, academic rigor, all the way down to your last one, kind of leadership and staff development. There's kind of a really nice summary of the questions that they asked during that SIAC, and I think those questions then ultimately drive some of the things that we need to do as a district and possibly even as a board, just to kind of address some of the things that they recommended and said. Overall, I think that you could ask the principals, but I think overall they were very pleased with what's going on, but they also have a different lens or see things through a different perspective that we don't always. And it was really helpful information of, you know what, that's a good point. We need to really think of how we are differentiating to support maybe some of our accelerated students, or have we thought about this means of communication? So overall, I appreciate SIAC in that regard and the information that they were able to provide. We can go through each individual one, or if there's questions that you guys have on, hey, what does that mean? We can certainly kind of discuss those, but I just wanted to be able to present to the board tonight the information that we received on June 12th through SIAC.
How did you facilitate conversation to get this information? Did you have like a document just kind of help
Yeah, we had
facilitate conversation, or is this just open for open mic, as it were?
great question. We had there are certain things that are required with SIAC that you present, and we had a presentation prepared, a PowerPoint with that information, and then at the end of each session or section, we would have open-ended, what questions do you have? And that really garnered the question. So we would present the information and then allow for that dialogue based off the information that we presented.
I see. I've been wrestling with this under the transition and support systems. The dip in performance on 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Trying to figure out, and I think I've discussed it with a few of you, or maybe just you, Josh, with it. We have done such a good job in elementary, and then what happens? And what was your assessment on what's going on? Is it I don't give a rip attitude? Is it I've always had a computer and it's always clapped and threw little balloons and stars at the end every time I get something right? I have an opportunity to go back, make corrections. Now all of a sudden I'm in middle school, and things are. Reality sets in. You either get it or you don't. So is it because of the happiness in the elementary school, and then all of a sudden in middle school There's none of that yay stuff, you know. So I don't know. There is a gap there, but maybe it's just attitude. Maybe it's just 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids. I got grandkids that age. I know.
Yeah, I think if you look at our system versus all other schools, whenever there is a transition from one building to the other, there is typically a drop. With that being said, historically, we have seen a drop going from fifth to sixth grade. And we shouldn't just settle and say, well, all schools, all systems are that way. Derek has really looked at some things, and we are shifting even how we're supporting some of our sixth graders this upcoming school year with lowering the sections. We had 2 sections; they're going to transition to 3 sections. We looked at our MTSS system, which is multi-tier systems of support. We're really looking at how can we make sure that we're providing the differentiated support to support students as they are transitioning over. Those are just a few of the things that we're trying to do to making sure, because our numbers in 5th grade we're performing at the 85 to 90 percentile, and that is one aspect of overall success, and we have seen that. And I think that we just need to be more cognizant of that and making sure that we are supporting those kids as they transition over. We see the same thing from 8th to 9th as well. And that's interesting because it's the same building or it's the same campus, but we are seeing a dip in some of that data as well.
I don't have an answer. It's a conundrum that I'm as you said, I don't want to just say, oh well, that's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
If there's a problem, we solve it and we get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and I think the parents, the community members that were at SIAC, they recognized and saw the data, and we didn't shy away from it. I mean, they presented the data the way that it was. I think it's our responsibility to really dive deeper into what's the why behind that? Why are we seeing those dips, and how can we hopefully improve that? And Derek already, like I said, is trying to do a few things. And we're going to see, does that make the difference? Does that move the needle? And if not, then we're going to do something in addition to that.
So the transition when my boys went through was 4th to 5th. And 5th grade was middle school. And every one of my boys struggled. It was just new, higher expectations, more responsibility. There was just
You don't have the same teacher all day.
right, just it was different. So there was a transition period. Is that can we mitigate some of those problems? I'm sure we figure out some things, but just naturally, it's a lot more. It's just a lot more.
We've been working really hard on trying to work as a K-12 system as well. So I think the more that we come together and we are really the 5th grade and the 6th grade are working together, we can help with some vertical alignment and help with that transition. I mentioned Derek and the middle school a number of times, but I think this falls on everybody. It's everybody's collective responsibility. And what are some of the elementary doing to making sure that transition is successful? And I think that we just need to continue to have those conversations to make sure that that's supported.
So the dip in performance, I just got curious. Is it temporary, or do those kids who have dipped, let's say, tend to stay in that new tier, so to speak? Do you get what I'm asking? I might not be asking that very well, but
we see typically our data has showed and I don't have it in front of me, but it shows a significant decline, and then some of those students start to retain and start to
kind of
recover. Yep. Maybe not to the level that they were at the primary level. And I think some of the things that we really talked about is are we, one of our theories of action, if you will, is are we challenging some of our advanced students and giving them the rigor? So I talk about differentiation. That's sometimes for some of our struggling students. kind of some of ours is that they already are performing at a high level. Are we pushing and challenging them to continue to grow? And that's some of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing on both of that with our MTSS processes.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything about that? Ready to move on? Do you have anything else you wanted to?
No, overall, that is the data, and like I said, I wanted to be able to present that, but I just don't want to be able to say, hey, we presented the data and let's move on. This is a document that, as an administrative team, that we'll continue to look at, analyze, and review. And I think that it's nice to be able to have that conversation and that information be presented through a different lens that we don't always look at.
As parents, was there one thing that they all jumped on and said, this is not a liability, this is a
Concern?
yeah. Is there any? Everybody has their own little quirks and their own little.
I'd be interested in, because they were there, I'd be interested to see what they say. If I had to identify one thing, I would actually go with two. They wanted to ensure student safety, and that is multifaceted. It is their social emotional safety, it's their physical safety. So that was something they've recognized and seen the things that we have done, and they also want to make sure that we don't let off the gas pedal. And then the second thing that they really talked about is I think the level of rigor, making sure that we are preparing kids for whatever their post-secondary options might be, right into the workforce or a four-year program, making sure when they walk across the stage that they are truly prepared. And some of them showed examples where we have excelled and exemplified, and our kids are doing extremely well. And they also showed some examples of maybe where we have fallen a little bit short with that. So I'd say that's, to answer your question, I think those were the major things that I heard that night with the parents.
Just one last comment, if you don't mind.
Yep.
As I look through this, though, I am encouraged because when I think about like the things that you guys talk about in your principals reports and the things that even like in curriculum meetings of like, so I see like the science somewhere in here was like our science rigor and what about advanced math and even what you just talked about preparation for post-secondary. These are things that we're already addressing, right? I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like a lot of these things are things that I think as a district and as admin team, you're already aware of, you already know that's in the works. We know it's maybe not a problem, we know it's an area of concern, and so I think that that's really encouraging to see that you guys are already identifying problems really as they rise. You don't even need it, not that you don't need it. I'm not trying to diminish it or discount it, but I just think it's encouraging that these are all things almost that you've already begun to address. So great job.
Absolutely. I will just leave it with, I create an operational plan on an annual basis of the things that we're trying to accomplish. And I think that if I look at my operational plan for the 25-26 school year, a lot of the actions that we want to address, many of them are embedded in this work here.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of that starts with you too. Also, so good job. All right. On to consent. All right. Anybody see anything in there that?
I'll move to approve.
Great.
Second.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle, Merritt. Yes. All right. On to some action items. Student handbooks. These were a little heavy. Did everybody read every word?
No.
So there were a few changes because of legislative changes that needed to be embedded inside of the student handbooks. Amy and Derek spent quite a bit of time in the early months of June. They're really making sure that either the legislative changes and or the help with the management of their building, those items were addressed in their handbooks. I'm going to actually allow them an opportunity to maybe just summarize 2 or 3 things that were critical changes this year. And then if you guys want specific questions, honestly, they would be able to answer specifically to the changes in their handbooks.
I would say the two main changes at the elementary would be changing the cell phone policy and then with attendance, just making sure that that was clear between our policy and then what we're following. And then in the preschool one, the standards stayed the same, so sometimes there's changes with that. But we are working closely with Elm Street to make sure that we really might just need one handbook versus them having their own. So just making sure that we had alignment between both programs with that.
And so for the high school, middle school one, if you were to set last year's handbook next to this year's handbook, it's going to look a lot different, and mostly because we restructured it, organized it to where it flows better. Going from the 23-24 to the 24-25 year, I think we combined a separate middle school and separate handbook into one. And so there's a lot of places where things were either doubled up and redundant or almost contradictory of what it was saying within the handbook. So cleaning it up so that it is consistent and that it flows a little bit better was mostly what we did. And then, I mean, there's a couple minor changes. Description of the OHS history and not had the 2019 edition, so we kind of updated that a little bit. And then I had the handbook with edits in there, so if you go through it, there's highlighted. A lot of it just says relocated or put up to Iowa code or minor changes or an unexcused absence or, minor consequences.
Thank you for reviewing that.
It
That took more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It was a process,
I
but
bet.
our ILT kind of took it in sections throughout the entire second semester. So
Great.
No, it looks good.
Good.
All right. No one has any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the handbooks.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle, Merritt. Yes. All right. Kind of a big deal. Mr. Heyer, do you want to talk about this? The election resolutions?
Yeah, so have presented for you guys tonight to have on the November ballot the renewal of a revenue purpose statement and the renewal of the voter PEPAL. These would be on the ballot and allow our patrons to be able to vote on whether they would want the continuation of both of those items. Just give a little bit of history, just to kind of re-summarize. Revenue purpose statement is ultimately the save. It's that 1 cent save tax. We get a certain amount per student enrolled, and that would be across the state of Iowa. In 2019, the legislation they approved the extension of the revenue purpose statement. Previously, it was to sunset at 2031. So 100% of schools in the state of Iowa have a revenue purpose statement in place. 47% of them have already taken action and extended it from 2031 all the way out to 2051. So that would give you 20 more years. Right now, we have it in place, but if we don't do anything with it in 2031, it would expire. And it gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to continue to do a large items as far as leases or purchases of technology and other equipment. So our computers that we have for our kids, some of the possible resurfacing of the track maybe, or maybe a vehicle for our fleet is utilized with that revenue purpose statement. So ultimately, depending on if you guys make the resolution, we are asking our patrons to renew that and go from 2031 to extend that out to 2051 so that we can continue with the same business. It is not a tax. It wouldn't change anything. It truly is just giving us the authority basically to use those save dollars that we get on a per pupil basis to be able to use those to the best interest of the school. If that makes sense with the revenue purpose statement.
So the taxes that's already, this 1 cent, it's already, regardless of what we did, it's there and we're all paying in.
Yes,
Is that correct?
absolutely.
So you're just saying if we extend it out, you have more freedom to work with it.
Absolutely. If it is not, it says in legislative code what that 1 cent has to go to. And basically what it is property tax reduction. So it really restricts, and it says rather than buying and improving our fleet or being able to purchase technology or other leases and or purchase of equipment, you shall use it for this. And if we do that, unfortunately, what it's going to do is it's really going to hamstring us, and the things that we've become accustomed to, we're going to be really limited in those. We're going to have to start making some difficult decisions.
How many dollars would you, on a yearly basis?
Around 750,000 is what we are actually able to get with that 1 cent saving.
In case you're part of that.
It's a big
I mean, really.
Yeah. Any questions with revenue purpose statement? Okay, so then the other resolution would be voter PEPAL, and voter PEPAL is a 10-year, and it is set to expire in 2028. So in 2018, it was renewed, and that is the state of Iowa allows you to have a board voted PEPAL, and that's 33 cents. And then you can have a voter PEPAL in place up to $1.34 per thousand. And our patrons have done that. I believe in 2018 it passed with, well, you know what, I don't know that number, but it passed over 60% plus one. And it is set to expire in 2028. Again, we utilize those for a large items that we're getting ready to do a roof. So we got a $200,000 roof that we're getting ready to improve, and we're using voter PEPAL for that. Possibly track resurf, any large items that would be physical equipment, physical plant equipment levy, that allows us that flexibility to maintain one of our most valuable assets, and that's our buildings. And they're going to eventually need maintenance, and we utilize that voter PEPAL for those types of items. Again, this would not be an additional tax. This would be a continuation of what our community has been used to. So,
just the wording, if this was presented to the general public, they would scratch their head and go and look at you kind of deer in the headlight. I mean, I don't get what you're asking for. I mean, you're asking it's going to go for general election for the Ogden community or the Ogden. Okay. So how do you educate these people?
That's what I was going to ask.
yeah. So,
There was a
assuming
word.
you guys accept a resolution, that allows us to be able to start to do the things with the county and get it on the ballot. That is only one small portion. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're educating our community on what is a revenue purpose statement and what is the voter PEPAL. So I would backtrack. A lot of superintendents that I've talked to said about 3 months prior to your election, you really need to start to just inform people about what this is. So assuming if you guys were to make this resolution and put it on the ballot, this is when the work for me really truly begins, making sure that we're educating everybody and that they're informed on what this is and the benefit that we have seen in the past because of the revenue purpose statement and the voter PEPAL.
But this is an off election year, isn't it? In November. I mean, there, no president.
It's not the midterm.
It's not a
Yeah,
presidential.
yeah.
Yeah. We will have 2 board members for re-election. So. What questions do you guys have for revenue purpose statement or voter PEPAL and the resolution and kind of what we're asking for you guys to do tonight?
Mine was the same as Earl's, so it sounds like we'll be working on that. So I don't have anything.
There is some legalities with the board can't form its own public committee to go out and sell it as a group. Need to brush up on those laws a little bit on what we can and can't do. There could be committees formed, but we need to, as board members, we need to know that before we get too in depth on what we're doing. As individuals, go tell everyone these are no brainers. They make sense, but don't start mailing out flyers and buying stuff So you know what the laws are on that. There are some state rules there that you're going to want to know.
Yeah, I don't mind reaching out to Siobhan or somebody else at
ISB.
Yeah.
to get some direction.
Yeah,
I'll do that. I'm glad you said that.
yeah, that's an easy one. They do this all day, every day. But yeah, and this is for the community standpoint, long term for the school district. These are both two no-brainer votes. The public has done quite well in the past supporting the school district, and I would expect nothing less this go around. But it definitely helps when we can coherently explain what the benefits are and what the dollars have been used for and what they will be used for moving forward. With that, I'll make the motion to approve both of those election resolutions. For next election.
I will second.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor, Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes. On to meal prices. Excuse me.
So Cindy worked with the Department of Ed consultant on a pricing tool, and based off of the recommendations, we are making a recommendation for our regular breakfast as well as our lunch to be increased by 10 cents. This would allow us, really, we looked at the expenditures, and food prices are continually increasing, and while our food and nutrition categorical budget is in a good position, we are seeing it decline over time. This allows us to generate a little bit more revenue just to slow down that bleeding that we are seeing a little bit. So the reason for the 10%, or not the 10%, the 10 cent for the regular is because of food prices as well as the decline that we have seen in the revenues in our food nutrition account.
What percentage of students utilize food service? Is it high? Is it 90%, 80%?
It's about 1,300 to 1,500 meals per month. Per day? No, per month.
No,
13,000, right?
13,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she serves, I believe, about 250 meals a day in our district. Is that right? I'm sorry. You know what?
That's okay.
I need
Hold on, I'm
Earl.
trying to find it.
What I'm going to do, because I don't want to give inaccurate information, I'm going to email Cindy, and then in my weekly report, I'll share that information with you guys. Because
It
honestly,
doesn't reflect on raising the prices. It was more.
yeah. But I think that's something that I need to have in my back pocket. I don't have that
Oh
information.
no, I was giving you the daily average. The daily average is between 1,300 and 1,500 meals per day, that's how much we make per day. Is 1,300 to 1,500. So it's
Divide that by the
60
price.
reimbursable
You do
lunches
breakfast and
served.
lunch and-
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
because
we've
it's
got
That's pretty.
10,000 meals, 6,600.
We'll wait. We'll wait. We'll wait for. We'll wait. For
76,800.
Did I catch
Yeah.
a niner in there?
I didn't mean to open that
800
can
meals per year.
of soup on that.
That's kind of a fun trivia question. How many meals for the year?
Yeah.
76,808.
How many?
20,000
Okay, so while you're
breakfasts.
looking, I mean, how many do we subsidize, or how many?
Now that's a good question. How many get free and reduced?
Yeah,
We are
because
at,
that's a big deal for.
That's a percentage.
Yeah, it's a percentage, and we are in the mid 20% for our free and reduced.
And those did not change.
Those prices did not change. If you can see the overall chart that was included in your packet, the 10 cents were for the regular breakfast and or the meal, and our free and reduced prices stayed the same. Yeah, that's a great clarification.
Is that a number, 20% that's pretty normal, or because Ogden is a little maybe a little bit more affluent than say, I don't know, can you think?
Depends on the geography.
Yeah, it depends on the geography, but I would say for the state of Iowa, we are actually a lower free and reduced percentage than what we would see if you just take the entire state of Iowa and all school districts.
Yeah.
I think you would probably see closer to that 40% range if you look at the state of Iowa. Yeah. Maybe even more. Because there's some school districts that are
Southern Iowa has
nearly
to be,
90 to 100% free and reduced.
I'll make the motion to approve the updated meal prices.
Second,
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
yes.
Merritt.
Yes, on to substitute pay rates.
Yeah, so it's similar in nature is we really looked at the West Central Athletic Conference as well as schools in our local area that we are competing with when we're trying to get substitutes. And what we found is that we were below market rate, or in some we were maybe just at average. So the recommendation were that we were going to increase by that amount that's in your packet, which would be for teachers. It would be a 140. We're going to 145. The long term is 175 and increasing to 185. And then you can see some of the associate substitute rates, 50 cents, and et cetera, all the way down the line. Basically, it's 50 cents more for everybody else in there. We did notice that our secretary sub rate was significantly lower, and we want to make sure that we're able to attract somebody. Not that we have a substitute for our secretary very often, but we do have an individual that is able to do that. We wanted to be able to pay them according to that. Long story short with this is we needed to increase, be able to compete with others in the area to make sure that we are paying our substitutes what they deserve.
Do we have a robust, sorry. I was just gonna ask, do we have a robust substitute pool, would you say, or is that an area that we're?
We could always do better.
Yeah.
I think there are times where positions are picked up with our Red Rover system.
Yeah.
And there are days where our principals truly are running around asking people and begging them, will you please cover, this class, or our secretaries are calling people at the last minute to get in here. So I think that pay is one aspect, and we want to make sure that we're supporting our substitutes and making sure that they have a good experience here, making sure that we're able to compensate them for possibly the additional drive out of maybe Ames or Boone or wherever that may be.
Sorry,
Has the internal coverage portion of subbing helped?
In emergency situations, I think that is a nice thing to have in our back pocket in those true emergency. The downfall of that is that you are asking somebody during their planning period to cover a class, which is not ideal because they got work to do, and you're assuming that planning and preparation work is going to have to shift somewhere else, for them to do that. So it is something that we have again as an option, but if we are simply going to that as our first option, I don't think that we are supporting our system the way that we should.
I make the motion to approve the increase in substitute pay rates.
I'll second it.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor, Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes. All right, on to therapy dog program policies adoption. Mr. Hiram, I'll let you take it away again. I know you're kind of excited about this.
Yeah, I am excited to share with you guys some more information about, I will tell you, before coming to Ogden, I was down in the Winterset School District, and I guess I was a little apprehensive of this, and I quickly learned the benefits of a therapy dog program. So I have seen it firsthand when I was at Winterset, and I've done some other research, such as Bettendorf is a large school district that actually has therapy dogs within their school system. So there are 4 policies. Well, there's 2 regulations and then the supporting documents that I presented with you. And ultimately, research shows that there's benefits of having therapy dogs. Some of those would be it creates a calm environment for students as well as staff. Overall happiness. It reduces stress and anxiety for some students. Also helps with like therapy, trauma-informed care. And it also impacts attendance and also student engagement. I've witnessed some of those benefits, and I would like to see those benefits within our school system. So upon my research, I found an organization in Concordia, Kansas, that actually has specialized in this since 1994. The gal has actually trained over 1,400 therapy dogs and placed them in over 40 states across the country. We have the policies, but really it's how would this work? And I have a document that I want to kind of hand out and talk a little bit more about the partnership with the CARES program and what that might look like if we were to bring this to Ogden. So let me hand that out. There it goes. So let me talk a little bit about the CARES program. Like I said, that they do specialize in training of therapy dogs. The dog and the handler are ultimately trained, and they must pass a public access test. So in order for them to actually be, and it would be equivalent to like a service dog, and they need the recertification on it every 2 years in order to make sure that the handler is properly trained, but then also the dog is properly trained. CARES partners and has identified the temperament of what might be a good dog to actually be a therapy dog. And they've identified probably 7 to 8 different breeds. Your golden retrievers, your labs, your doodles. I think there's a golden doodle, so it's kind of a mixture. A Burmese mountain dog, a Cavachon, I think. So they know through their time of doing this for 30 years, they know these breeds are going to be extremely well in school environments. So what they ultimately do is that we would have a process. Somebody would say, I'm interested in a therapy dog. They would create the application. We would determine if we are going to approve that. And then we actually submit to CARES. This person is a counselor at the elementary, and they are interested in this type of breed. And that initiates the process where they start to work, find hopefully the breed, but also the dog that has the temperament to align to the position that that person has within the district.
So all the weight actually goes onto the teacher, is that correct? As far as ownership, care, management,
Absolutely.
picking up stuff,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
clean up, yeah.
So ultimately, the handler or the school employee becomes the owner of the dog. We would then work with CARES, and it's about a 1-year program for them to identify, get the match. They would go through the proper training. Our employee then would go out and be, introduced to their new dog, and they go through a week-long training on what is it actually like to be a proper handler, and then they go through the certification.
And would that teacher take care of that expense?
So with this, a lot of what some school districts have done is they have partnered with a nonprofit organization, such as, let's say, the Ogden Alumni Association. And the Ogden Alumni Association says, we see the benefit in this, and we want to be able to support it. And I have not worked with Ogden Alumni Association yet, so I don't want to speak for them. But what we would hope for is that we might be able to find an organization to pay for the purchase of that dog and the training expenses, and then it becomes the employee's responsibility for the vet, the care, etc. If we do not find a nonprofit to pay for it, then the onus would go on the employee, to purchase that. The expense for it is $5,000 for it. But you think about a years-long training for that dog and the skill set that they have is quite a bit. Yeah, overall.
So is there any expense for the school to have access to a therapy dog and or
Both school districts that I work with, which is Bettendorf and Winterset, the school district does not assume any responsibility or cost. And if you looked at the board policies, really all the onus and responsibility is onto the handler as far as that, making sure they have the proper vaccinations, making sure that they are getting the hygiene that they need. There's even an insurance liability that they need to cover in the event of an incident, and that is all on the owner or the handler to carry all of that. The policies really just talk about all of the requirements that they have to have, and also making sure that they have to comply with all the expectations that we have for it.
Is there any reason why we couldn't at some level for the service that they provide?
Meaning, maybe it isn't a school employee, but we find somebody that has a therapy dog and they want to come in on like a Wednesday. Is that what you're saying?
No, you find a handler that's willing to do all this, but we compensate them for the time and the effort.
We pay for it.
Or like first year OAA does it and then their budget, something happens, they can't do it. The school's seen the benefit for a year. Now it's in potential of not being renewed.
I guess the question
Does the school come in?
I guess the question is there any reason why we couldn't compensate somebody for
Yeah.
the services provided through the therapy dog?
My first initial thought on that would be is if we purchased it, the school would be the owner of the dog.
I think, Matt, you're
Unless
just
it's
talking
people.
about additional wages, right?
Yeah, like-
Additional wages
yeah.
to whoever the handler is.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's basically an expense or whatever.
When they're doing extra work and having extra expense, it's providing service to the school and students.
Per diem of some sort.
Yeah.
Like a Schedule B extra stipend,
Yeah.
like a coach.
that's what I would initially say is rather than a per hour rate, we would just say if you are doing this and you're bringing the dog in for the benefit of the students and staff, we're going to pay you a flat rate, Schedule B of X amount of dollars. That would be my initial thought. And that would maybe be just to help cover some of the expenses that they might have. But ultimately, too, becomes part of their pet too. You know, I mean,
Sure.
you know, this is going to be a long-standing relationship that handler and this dog, hopefully for 10 to 15 years, is going to have in place.
Have you found a potential candidate to be a handler?
No, to be honest with you, I have not. And my initial thought would be is that I need to, if you guys approve the policies, the next thing that I need to start to do is reach out to some of our Ogden Alumni Association, the Winter Good Trust, etc., and see what interest they might have in supporting this initiative. I would probably have an informational meeting to share all of this out with our staff. They would then, I've actually created a Google Doc where they would have to submit and express interest. And then from there, we could go ahead and determine the level of interest and try and find matches. In an ideal world, when this got up and going, I would hope for maybe 2 dogs at each campus, to be honest. And that would allow maybe if there was 2 dogs at the elementary, you know, the principal would work with those handlers to be able to say, hey, you're bringing your dog in maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, and the other one might have Thursday, Friday. There might be some carryover where they're both there. But we would just kind of work on what that would look like.
What were the biggest benefits you saw at Winterset when that program started?
I will tell you some of our students that we struggle to connect with. They were able to connect with the dog and not the human. And all of a sudden, they had a purpose or reason to come to school. Some of the students that maybe struggled with their emotions and regulation, it's amazing where we couldn't maybe calm them down, but we actually gave them just 3 minutes with the dog to kind of pet and soothe. And all of a sudden, they're regulated, and we were able to talk to that student about the choices that they made, and we were able to make a lot of head and gains.
Okay.
Where we saw the dogs most of the time were in our special education rooms or our counselor. It doesn't mean that has to be where they're at, but that is my experience at Winterset. But truly, the dogs became one of the employees. You know, as as they're walking down the hallway to go maybe to lunch, you'd be amazed at how many staff as well as kids just stopped and, hey, how are you today? And would be petting the dog. And it just has a amazing impact on the overall culture in the building. And it was really something neat to see. For me, I quickly went to all of the, how are they going to be cleaning for them, going to the bathroom and those types of things. And I figured out all of the reasons why it shouldn't work. And then once I actually saw it in place and just trusted it, I quickly found out that all the reasons why it was actually beneficial to the school system.
I just listening to the type of dogs, it appears there's a non-hypoallergenic.
Hypoallergenic.
Yeah,
Hyperallergenic. I think that would be something that we would definitely have to consider.
Yeah, gold doodles, all those.
Yep.
Yeah, Jacob and I are both allergic to dogs, and we have a mini gold doodle.
And works
issues at
out.
home.
Okay.
That was going to be one of my questions: was allergies for kids that would have that issue.
Yeah, that is a good point. My son looks like Kate Shepherd's.
Certain ones.
No.
And we clearly would have to be aware of that. If it was at the elementary level and maybe we had a second grade teacher that was interested in having a dog and we knew at registration, we would probably just work and be intentional on making sure that we didn't set that student up for a difficult situation.
But that is true though. Like there are certain dogs that are less offensive to allergic people. And by the way, don't forget, like we're not approving like the dog coming or we're tonight just setting the framework for it to be impossible. So we're tonight just establishing the policy that would
This could set dormant for 3 or 4 years.
Right. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. We're not saying like, yes, we're getting a therapy dog. We're just saying like we're approving the policies that would set the
policies are well thought out.
Yeah.
The earliest that it would be able to happen would be even a year from now.
Yeah.
Because we would have to have the interest meetings. We'd have to find out, is there community support that would be able to subsidize the cost of the dog? They would have to go through the training, all those things, and we'd have to present that. So, yeah, it is going to be a longer process.
We all think, any more questions?
Yeah, you've answered some of my questions already just in the discussion. I was going to ask about, is there a maximum number of dogs? It seems like it's flexible. You have kind of a targeted 2 per building in an ideal world, but not necessarily capped at a certain amount.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask, a teacher gets a dog and it's ready to go. Is it in the building all day, every day? It sounds like there's flexibility there too, where you might just
there would
see
be
how
some
it goes.
flexibility.
Yeah, might not be all day, every day, but
I think you're bringing up a good point, though, is I think we would want to establish some minimum expectations. The last thing that we would want is I can't imagine this happening, but we get a therapy dog and then the handler doesn't ever bring the dog to work,
Yeah,
there's
and
some
we
kind
don't
of
reap the benefits from it.
Right.
So I think that would be, I would argue you're probably going to see it just the opposite.
Yeah.
They're going to want to bring that dog all the time.
Matt loves dogs.
I do.
Big dog.
Need you.
Bettendorf did put in place, and hopefully this would not happen, but for whatever reason, the employee chooses to leave the school system. They have a MOU in place that says that because the nonprofit has typically paid for it, the dog would either stay with the school system or they would have to pay back at a prorated amount the amount. So if you can see that last thing that I handed out, year 0, if they left within that first year, it'd be 100% of whatever the nonprofit, and it's a tiered system, basically a 5-year. After 5 years, if the employee left, it's their dog. We wouldn't ask for anything back.
Would that apply to the school if we did the stipend for them? Just thinking.
No,
I would think that would be work. That would be the work that they would have completed during that calendar
So that
year.
would be the difference between OAA or somebody doing that in school.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah, that makes sense.
What other questions do you have that I need to be able to bring to you guys so that you are kind of informed and
talking with a Boone board member today at work. Sounds like there's one in one of their buildings.
Okay, I did not actually know that.
I don't know which building.
Looks like a good first step to a potential new program.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve the stated policies for the potential therapy dog.
I will second it.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes. All right. Lots of policies here.
In July of every year, after legislative change, we just get policy updates, and starting with your 104 all the way down into the 900, it really is just reflecting all of those different changes. I can go through each one, but in your packet there was either additions and or there was lines crossing out. All of those are coming from ISB based off of what happened in the last legislative session. If you guys have specific questions about some of those policy revisions, we can certainly discuss those in more detail.
To me, it looked like they were all, like you said, related to new legislation and or things that we've already discussed and approved in other things. So did anybody else see it differently?
Excuse me, I picked up something on the truancy. Help me understand. In one side of the discussion, I picture. It says that if a child is truant, there's steps to take, and you contact the parent, et cetera, et cetera. It looked like they changed that so that it's not certified mail, et cetera. But then it goes down here, further on, it talks about the people who are exempt are attending an accredited non-public school, are receiving independent private instruction, are receiving public private instruction. It some ways goes back, you give that authority back to the parent in the exceptions. So I'm thinking, when I read the exceptions, did that take the teeth out of the truancy? If a parent says, well, I can keep him home and teach him myself for 2 weeks or whatever, you see what I'm saying? You see so I'm glad that there's the exceptions, but what if a parent comes and says, I'm one of these exceptions, but it doesn't.
If they are using those exemptions that are identified in the Iowa Code, if they are using that, we would need documentation. So, like, let's say, what would be one that they are going to a doctor? It's reasonable medical excuse is one of them. We would actually ask for doctor's notes to verify that. We wouldn't just go simply off of what the parent is saying. Well, my child's sick and we went to the doctor. We would want that verification to show.
So
that
for a
using.
homeschool kid, let's just use that because there's an independent private instruction or competent private instruction.
If they are IPI or CPI, then they would be exempt, and then we actually are not monitoring their attendance. That responsibility would be on the homeschool.
So if a child is registered in school, they start at the beginning of the year, and a parent decides, I'm going to just yank them out. So when you use those initials, I don't follow the initials, but
The IPI would be that's independent practice, and a parent is choosing to go homeschool, and they are not actually asking for any school support.
Okay.
So they're going to be 100% responsible for their instruction.
So if they took them out and did that for 2 months, and then put them back into school after 2 months, they realized
that's the parent's choice to be able to do
Okay.
that. And there are times where that does happen, where The parent, for whatever reason, has made that choice and says, we're going to get homeschooling to try. And they find out the challenges behind it, and they choose to re-enroll their student back in. So that does happen, and that time that they are in IPI, the parent has signed off and says that's their choice and what they want for instruction for their child. So we really don't have any oversight and or responsibility for that time.
But you would get a parent that could just pull them out and there's no discussion between the schools. Is that possible?
It
Does
is
that happen?
possible.
I mean, I know the homeschool mind well enough to know that could happen.
Yeah.
So if there's no communication, are they truant? I mean,
During that time frame, we would not be able to monitor that. We would only be accountable for the time that they are a resident and fully enrolled in our school. Any other questions on the?
We good there, guys?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve all of those policies. I can read them all.
I'll second it.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes. Alrighty, so we've got first and final on a few more.
Just continually going through. I think we've been in the 7, 8, 900 series, and tonight we had in your guys' board packet 904.1 to 907R1. Again, this is just our constant review of those policies.
I'll make the motion on first and final reading of 9041 to 907R1.
Second.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle, Merritt.
Yes. All right, along to public comments. I don't have the list, but did either of you have anything to share? Not tonight. All right, on to the board calendar. Yeah, don't forget we have a work session this Thursday.
Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Is that still good for everybody?
Yeah, if that's okay, we'll
6
be in
o'clock
here.
this Thursday here.
Hoping for about an hour and a half by 7:45, a hard shutdown.
Okay,
We'll make sure that we're out of here before 8 o'clock.
that sounds good. Let's see, what else here? Earl, we can talk after the meeting. You were talking about doing a curriculum.
Yes, I would like to have an instructional subcommittee meeting, and Kelly and Earl are on that. If we can maybe just compare calendars and figure out when to have a subcommittee meeting.
So we can, if you'll stick around, Earl, we can. And that brings us to.
Yeah, I just have one item that I want to talk to you guys about. So on May 20th, the governor signed a grant option for, it's called the Continuum of Care Grant. And this is in partnership with the Iowa Health and Human Services, as well as helping support local care providers and partnering with statewide volunteer preschool programs. And it is a 3-year grant that they can give up to $300,000. And ultimately, the grant is aimed at ultimately getting kids in volunteer preschool programs. We have on an annual basis 2 to 5 kids that enter into kindergarten and they were not in preschool for an array of reasons. Some of the things that they mentioned in the grant is that transportation sometimes is a barrier for the parents, so they elect not to enroll their child into preschool. Or maybe the work environment doesn't allow them the flexibility to be able to do what they need. So they ultimately wanted to come up with some of those barriers and they knew what the barriers were and they wanted to remove some of those barriers. A local care provider in Ogden actually reached out to us and said, hey, we might be interested in writing this grant. And ultimately, the grant, what they're trying to do is provide wraparound care for the child so that the parent can actually be gainfully employed, as well as allow transportation to and from. So we haven't received the grant, but I just wanted to inform you guys that we wrote the grant because I ultimately think it is a benefit to increasing, hopefully, access to our volunteer preschool program, as well as removing some of those barriers for some of our younger families so that they can hopefully enroll their kid in, have wraparound care, and they can enter into the workforce, which they may need to be able to do. So I don't know the outcome of the grant, fingers crossed, but we did submit the grant and hoping that we would be able to support some of our younger learners as well as some of our younger families.
Define volunteer. Is this an Elm Street or is this over here the evolution? Or is it something different? Is this a single individual? Or is this within the school context?
It's in the school context, but Elm Street falls underneath because they're responsible for all of the preschool curriculum. So even though they're a community partner, they would fall underneath of this umbrella as well.
So the transportation would be, they could take the child to Elm Street, is that what you're saying?
Elm Street or to our Ogden Early Learning Center. Either one would be an option.
And where would this early child care center that we have is it? I know they're one on the elementary school. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking about?
So our preschool program, the state of Iowa calls it statewide volunteer preschool program because it is a 4-year-old program. We get funding for that, Earl. And it's also optional. Parents don't have to enroll, so that's where the volunteer aspect of it is.
That's the volunteer.
That's the volunteer portion of it. Yep, absolutely.
I was thinking volunteer.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do is hopefully eliminate it from being volunteer to this is just a really good thing to get your kids in 4-year-old preschool, and we're trying to remove some of those barriers so that it can actually happen. The child care provider that came to us is Future Bulldogs. And they wanted to possibly join in and write this grant together.
Excellent.
So, walk me through a likely scenario, how this would work.
Like saying we get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, how would this impact a parent? That this would help support that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Good question.
Right now, if you have things in place, it would be, there's 2 options with this. Business as usual. You know, they would still participate in our volunteer AM or PM program. They might have their transportation and daycare all figured out, and they would continue. So for that situation, it would be status quo. The other alternative option is that you are one of those family members that say, I'm not going to do the preschool program because I need to work in Ames and I have to be there by 6:30 in the morning. And it's easier for me just to bring my child to, work, and have daycare over in Ames.
Mm-hmm.
What they could choose to do is enroll their child in the Future Bulldog program. So they could drop them off at 6:30 in the morning. At 8, we would maybe have AM preschool start. There would be transportation from the Future Bulldogs to our preschool program. So now they're enrolled in that preschool program. They would be there from 8 to 11. The parent's still at work, able to do what they need to do. At 11 o'clock, we would figure out a transportation way to get them from preschool back to that wraparound care at Future Bulldogs. And then what we would do is rinse and repeat for an afternoon group. So the hope is that we would be able to ultimately provide that transportation to and from while they are doing the wraparound care for those kids that are at that program. And it would be for Elm Street and or for Ogden Elementary Learning Center. I think it gives families just some flexibility and some options if they so choose to.
Kind of to piggyback on Matt, so what about the cost of, because, Future Bulldogs they transport, as I'm sure, I know you probably know, like to both preschools already. But I mean, some might say it's a little expensive. You get what I mean? So like, I'm just asking, like, would there be a cost reduction if they were to get the grant, or?
I think that some of the things that they embedded inside the grant were
Yeah.
some of those costs to be able to
Okay.
help support some things.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So if we were to move forward, I can outline everything that was in there.
Yeah.
Ultimately, one of the things that we were going to be requesting is the grant to pay for a vehicle to allow us to be able to help support that transportation at that cost. So I wanted to bring that information to you to educate you guys a little bit more about the Department of Health Health Services, the grant option, and be able to give you guys that information tonight.
So if you get the grant, as Bulldog, Future Bulldogs, they wrote the grant, and the program would be specifically for them, or would it cover additional preschool or child care organizations that they want to keep advantage of the program as well?
They're the ones that wrote the grant, so it would be applicable for their child care.
That is exciting, though. I mean, you and I have talked often about, that there are a lot of barriers to, for families with small kids. I mean, thankfully in Ogden, a lot of people have family and need help, but not everybody does, quite frankly. So I know that is a problem for some of my friends and sometimes even myself. So you get it.
And
it's hard.
Yeah, it's if we were to get it, and it's just an option. It doesn't mean that it has to be the option. It's just one of them.
Yeah.
We're trying to add another tool in the toolbox, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for explaining that. I saw that a couple times in weekly updates.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Very cool.
I will give you guys more information if we were to get some positive news. If not, I just use this opportunity to educate you guys on a grant option across the state of Iowa.
All right. Anybody have anything else to add before we close up shop?
Motion to adjourn.
There you go, Pete.
I'll second.
All right.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes. Right.